and welcome. I'm Nidhi Razdan. As the world rallies around India in the aftermath of the Mumbai attacks, there's one country that has an even bigger stake in the fallout, and that's Britain. When Britain's Prime Minister Gordon Brown was here in December, shortly after what happened in Mumbai, he said that 75% of the terror plots that have been investigated there have found their links with the Al-Qaeda in Pakistan. Well, Britain's Foreign Minister David Miliband is currently on a visit to India as India seeks more international support for upping the diplomatic pressure on Islamabad. And at the age of 43, David Miliband is in fact one of the youngest foreign ministers that Britain has ever seen. He's also often referred to as a possible future leader of his party. He has a tough job these days with the issue of terrorism dominating his agenda wherever he travels, but he's also passionate about other issues like climate change. And in the middle of everything else, he also finds time to write his own blog. Well, the people of India today will get a chance to throw questions at the young Foreign Secretary. Mr. Miliband, thank you very much for speaking to NDTV. I thought I'd be the first to ask you about your rather interesting comment which I read about you on your blog, which was that your original career choice was to have been a bus conductor. So how did you slightly deviate from your career goal?
I haven't quite lived up to that, but when I was a kid in London, I always wanted to be a bus conductor. I'm not a bus driver, but a bus conductor for some reason. But things moved on and life turns out in strange ways.
Must have been the red buses that attracted you.
It was actually the special machines that the bus conductors had in London in the 1970s that were particularly attractive to me.
You're, of course, here in India for some very serious diplomacy, but at the same time, we heard you're going to Amethi with Rahul Gandhi. How did that happen? How did that trip happen? That wasn't scheduled.
I've been trying to talk to a whole range of politicians in India for some time, and I met Rahul Gandhi for the first time 4 years ago, and we've stayed in touch. And when he visited the UK last year, he said that it would be really good to get a chance for me to see some of his constituents and see how they live and see some of the issues that are raised by them. So we're going to be spending a day or so in Amethi, I think away from most of the media glare. And it's a chance to talk to him, but also a chance to talk to some of the people of India who are leading lives that really politicians like me need to know about.
You're seen as a potential Prime Minister, a future Prime Minister of Britain, and do you see in Rahul Gandhi a potential Indian Prime Minister?
I'm not going to give that sort of curse to anyone to start making those sorts of predictions. But look, Rahul Gandhi is obviously a man of enormous integrity and intelligence. He's got big ideas about the future of India as well as the future of the region, actually. And I think that what struck me, actually, on talking to him is that he's someone who keeps his feet very firmly on the ground.
All right, let me first talk about an issue that many here in the audience have questions for you as well. And that is why you're here, which is this diplomacy between India and Pakistan. And quite frankly, there's been some disappointment here in India that you did not endorse India's position that those who were behind the attacks in Mumbai should be handed over to India. Why is that?
Well, I endorsed India's anguish that it feels at the attacks that have come from across the border. I endorse strongly India's determination to see those who perpetrate these terrible crimes brought to justice. But I think that given that we all have worked so hard for an independent, sovereign, judicial system in Pakistan, we should let it take its course. And the Pakistani authorities have said that they want to prosecute those who perpetrated these crimes, or at least were associated with them. And I think that we should hold them to that standard. The Pakistani lawyers' movement was a major independent force in Pakistan last year, calling for the return of civilian government. They showed their independence. And so the evidence has been presented, the detentions have been made, and now those people need to be brought to justice, and if they're found guilty, they need to be punished. And since there isn't an extradition treaty between India and Pakistan at the moment, then let's let and ensure that the Pakistani judicial system takes its course.
But you know, as the Indian Foreign Minister pointed out, even if there isn't an extradition treaty, there are other international conventions under which Pakistan can hand over the perpetrators to India. But let me ask you a couple of things. One is that the Pakistani civilian government itself and President Zardari himself don't have faith in their own institutions. He wants a United Nations probe into his wife's death. She was the Prime Minister of Pakistan. They don't have faith in their own institutions. And secondly, on the issue of detentions, the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, we now know, has simply changed its name. And in the past, we've seen that there's just been house arrest and they're out, you know, within days.
House arrest and release within days isn't good enough, because very, very serious crimes have been committed, and they